and consistently that white supremacy is illegitimate, that encouraging a politics of racial resentment can spawn violence, and that violence aimed at people by virtue of their skin color is terrorism. Director Comey, what does it mean for the President of the United States to call on the Proud Boys, which the Southern Poverty Law Center has designated as a hate group that regularly expresses white nationalist views, to stand back and stand by?
It lifts the control rods. In the basement of our amazing country has always been a small amount of radioactive stew, and we've controlled that racist stew with law and with culture. And when the President of the United States starts talking in that way about that kind of group, he's pulling out of that radioactive stew the control rods that we've used for 50 years to suppress racist violence. It is a deeply disturbing development, and I hope no matter what your politics are, you see it the same way.
And just to put a sharp edge on this, sir, since 9/11, is it true that the majority of our domestic terrorist actions, killing American lives, everywhere from a church in South Carolina to a synagogue in Pittsburgh, the majority of our murders, terroristic murders in this country, have been done by right-wing organizations?
That's my understanding of the data.
Domestic terrorism, domestic right-wing organizations feeding hatred and bigotry. And so how do these shameful comments of the President of the United States, his outright refusal to condemn white supremacy, dangerous white supremacy, affect the psychology of groups like the Proud Boys and other violent extremist groups like them, other white nationalist groups that we have seen conduct and carry out such violence? How does it affect the psychology of these groups?
It gives them license, and it makes them cool in the eyes of the people who make up that radioactive stew. And so it will attract more people to their warped view of the world and to their groups. It is a free pass to people that nobody wants in their communities. And I don't know whether today the president has tried to correct what he said, but I would sure hope he would.
And Director Comey, you're not alone. You are not the first FBI director, nor the last FBI director to state plainly the dangers of white supremacy, of this kind of violence. Your successor, FBI Director Christopher Wray, recently testified that, quote, racially motivated violent extremism, primarily carried out by white supremacists, account for the majority of domestic terroristic threats. This is an imminent threat, as a president seems to be calling to such groups to stand by. A president who has explicitly said if he loses this election, it will be an illegitimate election. A president who has explicitly failed to commit himself to the peaceful transfer of power. And so how do President Trump's statements about these groups affect the FBI's ability to address this threat?
The FBI is fighting a fire of racist violence, and with words like that, the president is using a fire hose to spray gasoline on that fire. And maybe he misspoke. Maybe when he said stand down and stand by, he meant something else. I sure hope for the sake of our whole country, he'll say that today, what he really meant to condemn these groups.
But sir, do you see the connection to the election that is ongoing right now, and where we are less than 35 days away from that election? Do you have cause for not just concern, but real alarm about these groups being incited and motivated by the words of the President of the United States towards violent actions?
Yes, that's what I meant by using my homely metaphor of spraying gasoline with a fire hose. It creates a dangerous blaze for all of us, not just people of color, but for every community in America that has these thugs and criminals have a presence there, ought to worry about this. And the President of the United States should be charged with tamping it down, not letting it free.
So here we are in the United States of America, where the current FBI director, where the past FBI director are both saying unequivocally that we are facing a threat of domestic terrorism, and clearly saying that the words of the President of the United States is not calming, is not unifying, is not bringing us together, is not condemning this, is actually inciting it, to use your words, that is spraying gasoline on the fires of hatred going into an election.